Right, your boyfriend, your roommate, your sibling, maybe that random guy at work has said, I'm off to play Warhammer 40K, and now you find yourself staring at Google like, what in the emotionally repressed space stuff nonsense even is this? You kind of want to know, what is he going to be doing for the next 6 hours? Why do his miniatures look like gothic action figures from a haunted Renaissance fair? And how can I casually impress him with one perfectly timed "May the Emperor's light guide you"? Stay with me, because I'm going to explain this wild, wonderful, chaotic mess that is Warhammer 40k, with some spicy ACOTAR references, a little heresy, and maybe a few space bugs. So, this is Warhammer 40k for the Book Talk girlies. Welcome to the Girlfriend's Guide to Warhammer. So, Warhammer 40k's story. It's massive. It's like I accidentally asked one question and now my boyfriend has been talking for 45 minutes over dinner and I cannot shut him up. Level of massive. Don't worry, I've got you. Unlike Marvel or even Star Wars, where someone is kind of out there babysitting the storyline, Games Workshop, who's the company behind the chaos, they pretty much said, do you know what? Everything is canon. All of it. Forever. Canon, if you are totally new, it kind of means the official stuff that's part of the story, like the real tea, the accepted truth in the universe. If we're comparing this to ACOTAR, Rhysand is a High Lord of the Night Court. That's canon. It's true. The fanfic where Tamlin gets redeemed, joins a boy band and writes poetry, not canon. But would I still read it? Yes, I would. It's kind of like if Sarah J. Maas said every fan theory is true and then just left us to figure it out from there. Welcome to Warhammer. I'm not experiencing an earthquake. My cat is playing with the tripod. So yeah. Canon in Warhammer is more like a big, messy scrapbook of vibes, betrayals, battles, and holy space drama. So your first homework objective is to kind of figure out what faction he's playing. If we bring this back to ACOTAR, you know how within ACOTAR there's different courts, right? And then within these courts, they either act for good or bad. And eventually there's a big civil war. Warhammer, same thing. Except the courts, they're called factions. And instead of incredibly attractive fae boys with wings and emotional baggage, you've got space elves and angry monks in power armor, and undead robots with trust issues, and apparently cats that will not sit still. Each faction has its own look, its own backstory, its own goals, its own drama, and when I say drama, some are quite literally fighting for survival, some for religion, some for power, and some are just there to burn everything down just because they can. You need to kind of work out which one he's picked. And there are loads, way too many for one video, but I can try and help you figure out if he's picked the good guys, and I say good guys loosely, or the bad guys. And if you really want to throw him off, when you know if he's on team good and he says, I'm just off to the bathroom, hit him with, "May the Emperor's light guide you." And he's going to go, what? If he's on team bad, and I'll help you figure that out in a second, hit him with, "Sure, no worries, blood for the blood god." And he's still going to go, what? Basically, if the little guys he's got look anything like this, I'm going to put them on the screen, then he's got the good guys. It's important to note that, like I said, I say this loosely because no faction is inherently good. They all kind of do bad things, but some are doing bad things for the greater good, for the Emperor, and some are out there just doing bad things. If they don't look like this, they're going to look like this, then they're bad. The beauty of Warhammer is to kind of play, you don't need to know all of this lore and everything. It does kind of help, though, to have a general idea of what it's about. And I appreciate even people who kind of like say, let me explain it to you. And then you're there 30 minutes later and they're still talking and you stop listening because it was way too confusing. I'm going to try and explain it to you in a way that makes sense. Stick with me. I reckon I can do it. Right. Take the worst future you can think of, ever. Pour gasoline onto it. Toss in some demons. Then ask Rhysand to really let go of his inner darkness. And you've got Warhammer. Everyone's at war, always, forever. The galaxy is basically like the same vibes as if like the Suriel had 3 double espresso shots and then became like chaotic and unknowable and screaming something cryptic before exploding. That's kind of what it's like, but way worse. And probably all meaningless because space bugs are just coming to eat you anyway. Literally eat everything. And I'll talk about that in a minute. Right, if we start with the gods. The gods are real, but not like the Cauldron or the Mother. These gods are like if Amarantha and the King of Highburn and the Suriel all had a baby, and then it was that baby was then raised by Freddy Krueger. Like that movie with Vin Diesel. And he looks after all the kids, but it's not Vin Diesel, it's Freddy Krueger, and the kids are all insane. These gods, they live in hyperspace, which is like the ACOTAR version of the Hewn City, if the Hewn City was also hell. They travel between planets, People willingly fly through that place. It's basically like a mandatory trip to the Court of Nightmares, but make it worse. Humanity isn't exactly winning. Humans are ruled by an empire that worships a glorified, let's call him, for new people, space zombie, and he's called the Emperor. Think Tamlin's spring court, but if everyone was also a paranoid priest with a flamethrower. Innovation is banned. If you want to fix a toaster, that's heresy. Asking why is a great way to be executed. Thinking is also a great way to be executed. Existing is, well, you kind of got a 50-50 chance. But the Imperium might be right because using your brain, it invites demons to eat your soul. Now, I mentioned heresy, but what is it? You're going to hear it a lot, especially if you identify as female in this hobby. Heresy becomes your middle name, thanks to all the guys in my DMs calling me a heretic every day. Anyway, in Warhammer 40K, heresy is basically the worst thing imaginable you can do. It's like treason, it's like blasphemy, and bad vibes all rolled into one nice Subway sandwich, and it will get you a one-way ticket to being very, very, very dead. Imagine if Feyre asked, hey, is the cauldron actually a good idea? And the High Priestess just immediately tried to burn her alive for even thinking it. That's heresy. In universe terms, heresy, it means saying, thinking, or doing anything that goes against the Emperor, who's half dead but still somehow is the boss of all humanity. This includes saying things like, maybe the Emperor's not a god. Heresy. Trying to invent something new. Science is suspicious, right? Heresy. Asking why we're sacrificing that to fix a ship. Heresy. Thinking aliens might not all be that evil. Hey, maybe they're not so bad. Heresy. Reading a book that's not approved. Heresy. Breathing in a way that seems suspiciously philosophical. Heresy. If any of that sounds reasonable, congratulations, you're a heretic. Now please report to your local inquisitor for immediate incineration. Why is it so extreme? Here's the kind of like twisted part. Heresy is dangerous because the evil gods, who are known as chaos gods, they are real. They live in warp space, which is like interdimensional hell. Asking too many questions or exploring forbidden knowledge, it opens a door straight to that hell. The logic goes like this. It's better to kill the question asker than let a planet full of people get possessed by space demons. It's harsh, but that's kind of how the Imperium likes to roll. So, to summarize, heresy is kind of anything that smells even remotely like independent thought. In Warhammer, it is safer to chant hymns, obey blindly, and not even look at a light bulb the wrong way. You're either faithful or flammable. Andrew Tate would like this, right? I went there, sorry. If I give you some examples of the factions out to kind of get the Space Marines and the Emperor and his big boys, it makes sense to start with the Orcs. They basically think violence is hilarious. So imagine if Cassian was big, or bigger, and green, and slightly smelly, drunk on Fey wine, and then they cloned him 1,000,000 times, and each version of that clone had this exact same singular thought process. Explosions means happiness. They reproduce like mold, which is fitting because they're basically sentient foot fungus with guns. Honestly, they're thriving. Good for them. Chaos. I mentioned them earlier. Chaos gods. They're bad guys with flair. Repeat to yourself. Bad guys with flair. Bad guys with flair. Chaos worships the evil gods on purpose. Why? Power. Immortality. Probably daddy issues. Picture the Court of Nightmares, but with more spikes, human sacrifices, and magical venereal diseases. They'll either kill you horribly or make you one of them, or both. And if you're kind of into it, then they're the ones for you. Now, the Eldar are elves, which is cool, right? But just make them mean. They're space elves. They are graceful, but they are murdery. They hate everyone, including themselves. There are two flavours. You've got your regular Eldar, like stab you for existing, and your Delk? What the hell is Delk? And your Dark Eldar. Stab you. Creatively, for fun. Think Autumn Court, but make it goth and psycho and just allergic to joy. Now we've got Tyranids, galactic piranhas. They're what I referenced earlier on in the video as space bugs coming to literally eat everything and anything because there's literally no stopping them. To make it make sense, I'm going to compare them to, now bear with me, I'm going to compare them to Mother Gothel from Tangled. Don't be a dummy. What does she say? Come with mummy. I don't think that's right. Somebody's going to sexualise that. Anyway, here we go. Mother Gothel, but as a galactic horror. Hear me out. They pretend to love life by using it, but really They're draining the stay with mummy? I don't know. They're draining the galaxy to stay powerful. The hive mind, it controls everything, like this manipulative, all-seeing villain, but instead of keeping Rapunzel in a tower, it keeps thousands of species in tanks to harvest them. Think the cauldron spewed out a race of bioengineered horrors that eat planets. They don't want to negotiate, they want to consume everything, including your pets, your houseplants, even your skincare routine, right? Terrible. And they're running from something worse. So that's comforting, and you'll have seen them if you play Space Marine 2. We've got the Tau, the space cult you'd swipe right on and then regret. The Tau, they sound nice, they're like sciencey, they're teamworky, they're big on the greater good, but the greater good means do what we say or get reprogrammed. It's giving spring court energy, again, I'm afraid, and on the surface it's all sunshine and strategy, but underneath it's mind control and secrets and very like, I'm fine, even though you're not fine. To summarise it, Warhammer 40K is kind of what you'd get if Nesta was in charge of all of the Illyrians. Feyre accidentally summoned a demon god through her painting, her bad painting, and Lucian was eaten by a space worm halfway through trying to explain what the hell was going on, and now we all miss him greatly. But the miniatures are cool, and painting them is therapeutic, and they don't have to actually all look doom and gloom and grimdark. Personally, I like the paint, like the traditional paint schemes. I like the paint, obviously. Well, sometimes I don't. But I do like the traditional paint schemes. I'm a huge lore-driven hobbyist. That is my personal preference. But there are so many cool variations that if you wanted like a really cool date night to like paint together, spice up your miniatures and yourselves because it's date night. But hey, we're talking about miniatures here. Switch up the paint schemes. It's cool. I'm going to share with you a cool account on Instagram. She's called Megalus Hobbies, like Legolas, I know it's cool. And she uses some really amazing colour schemes. I'm going to share some of her stuff here. Because again, like date night inspo, right? Anyway, there are 3 key events I want to mention just before I explain the game a little bit, because you're probably going to hear them referenced and mentioned and not have a bloody clue what they are. So I'm going to help you out there. And the first one is the Great Crusade. So imagine the Emperor as a cross between Thanos with a god complex, Elrond on way too much pre-workout, and every disappointed dad ever. He took his squad of Thunder Warriors who are like basically angry, unstoppable super soldiers with a short lifespan, and he looked at them and he said, nah, I can do better than that. So he pulls Tony Stark in a cave move, but on a god tier level, and he created 20 Primarchs, superhuman sons made from his own DNA because he loves himself that much. It's basically if you made the Avengers but everyone's related and traumatized and either worships or betrays you. But Chaos, remember? Bad guys with flair, bad guys with flair. Being those, they're like the messy ex that just can't let anything go. They yeeted all 20 baby Primarchs across the galaxy like it was a twisted cosmic Easter egg hunt. Undeterred though, the Emperor was like, fine, I'll just conquer the galaxy and go looking for my 20 baby Primarchs at the same time. And this became what's called the Great Crusade, like a massive galactic road trip where the Emperor wants his boys back. It's kind of like where the Imperium, they rolled up basically on various human planets and they gave them 2 choices. Hi, join us and praise our glow-stick Emperor or die horribly. There was no third option. Meanwhile, 2 of his original 20 sons were mysteriously erased from history, like full-on Marvel deleted scene status. No one knows what happened, but the Imperium just pretends they never existed, and it's like a really up-in-the-air debate. The next key event you will hear referenced a lot is the Horus Heresy. I have a full breakdown video on this if you want to go like a little bit hardcore with your research, but I appreciate you're probably not going to want to do that. So for a summary, it's after the Emperor has finished his galaxy-spanning road trip, Great Crusade, things were finally looking organised. He's got his demigod sons, his Primarchs. He's got them back. He's also now got millions of super soldiers and a solid galactic empire in the making. And all he had to do was pop home to Terra, which is Earth, but Latin because thanks Warhammer, and work on his secret science project that no one is allowed to ask about. What could go wrong, right? Everything. Everything went wrong. Enter the Horus Heresy. Now, Horus is the Emperor's golden boy, his #1 son, and he got promoted to War Master. Think Azrael, if Rhysand gave him full control and then pieced out with 0 context. Chaos, bad guys with flair, bad guys with flair, saw this moment and started to whisper. We'll do some like ASMR whispering. Hi, Horus, how are you? whispered sweet nothings into Horus's mind, plus some like serious demonic peer pressure, and they convinced him that maybe dear old dad isn't that great after all. Cue the Horus heresy, a galaxy-wide civil war where half the Primarchs sided with Horus and turned against their father in a dramatic, messy, blood-soaked betrayal. Think Avengers Infinity War, but everyone is Loki. The Infinity Stones are actual gods, and Thanos is also your dad. Wow. The myth wrapped in mayhem is, for people living in the current 40k timeline, the heresy is basically myth and legend, like ancient Greek epics, but in space with more fire and way more chainswords. Only imperial cults and scraps of old records, they're the only ones who remember what happened. But for us, the readers, the tabletop nerds, it's a whole separate war game, like over 60 books of epic literature where the emotional damage is deliciously painful. But how did it end? Badly. Horus and the Emperor, they finally face off in a duel so dramatic, like it makes anything Nestor did just look like a pillow fight. Horus, he almost wins, but the Emperor pulls out this last second god mode finisher and just obliterates him. It's a really cool reading if you're into it, but it does cost him everything. The Emperor is then mortally wounded and just slapped into a golden throne, which is basically a giant life support machine held together by spit and tape and psychic suffering. He's technically alive, but emotionally and spiritually and cosmically very much not alive. The ironic twist is that the Emperor is actually a hardcore atheist who explicitly told everybody not to worship him, but he's now literally the centerpiece of the galaxy's most repressive, fanatical religion. He wanted a united, rational humanity, and instead he got flaming skulls, gothic cathedrals in space, and a daily human sacrifice to keep his life support plugged in. It's I think it's funny. Honestly, let me try and compare it to ACOTAR. I'm going to go down a Nestor route again. Nestor builds a library, but then accidentally founds a murder cult. And that brings us back in a nice little loop, back to the beginning of 40k. So that kind of covers it if he's painting, maybe he's reading too, but what if he's off to play? What if, like, he's not good, like, it's not like golf or football, right? You know, if he's saying, I'm off to golf, I'm off to football, he's off to faff around with a ball for a bit, like, those kind of balls, not, anyway, he's let's move on. And then he's going to put a face in for drinks afterwards. Instead, he's actually packing up his miniatures, plastic ones, and caffeine, and banging on his Creed Ultimate Hits playlist, and you don't hear from him for hours. But what is he doing? With Warhammer 40k, it's all about like group energy. So with his miniatures, instead of having like individual little models on the table when he arrives doing their own thing, he'll have squads. So maybe like 8 squads of 10. They all work together like a full-on Taylor Swift Eras tour stage production, but on a tabletop. So he rocks up, he's got little groups of miniatures, and they have to stay in their groups. They're placed on the table, like I said, in their groups, and each group has its own abilities, so on and so forth. It's less about micromanaging every single model, and it's more about just building a perfect army. Army composition is the star, the key player here, kind of like the Mean Girls lunch table strategy. It requires a lot of planning. So picture this, playing a game of 40k is kind of like a High Lords meeting. One person gets the floor, does all of the dramatic moves. They summon armies, they cast spells, they slay enemies, full Rhysand at the hewn city energy, and then it's the other person's turn to take over, and they do the exact same thing, rinse and repeat. You follow a process, and you have to do all of the stages as one entire turn before the next person has their turn. So it's less, I'm interrupting your turn with this spicy counter move, and more, I'm just going to sit back and sip on my monster while you can of monster, while you do your thing, and then I'll unleash hell when it's my go. So it's very much like courtly politics, not Illyrian training pit chaos. So 40k isn't just some chaotic throw your army on the table and hope for the best kind of game. Like, you need your entire army, or court if we're referencing ACOTAR, you need them working together flawlessly. Like Feyre's squad taking down Highburn. Everybody has a role. You're not counting on one single overpowered character to carry the whole game like it's some Azrael solo mission. You need the whole team, wings, claws, magic and mind syncing up to win. So if we talk about building an army because it's really customizable. Other games, they might say, pick your characters and off you go, but not 40k. You can swap out versions, you can tweak loadouts, you can totally style your units to match your strategy. And when you zoom out and just apply that level of detail across your entire army, your possibilities are endless. So 40k is less punch and go and more, I'm Rhysand and I've been planning this for centuries. Hello, Farah, darling. So basically, what he's done is he's had this time, he's taken some time and he's analysed his miniatures to figure out where best to place them on the table. Remember, they stay together in their units. He's then going to roll a dice with his opponent to determine who goes first, and then the person who goes first will then play through all of the different stages, which are referred to as battle rounds. And they look like this. You've got command phase, movement phase, shooting phase, charge phase, fight phase. I counted wrong. Apparently I can't count today. He has to play all of the phases before the next person has their go. There's no interruptions, no added drama. You play each and every single phase, and then your turn or your round is over. So Warhammer is basically what happens when you let emotionally damaged space characters run the galaxy, give everyone way too much power, and then tell them not to ask questions. And somehow everyone agrees that that's fine. It's chaotic. It's intense, it's dramatic. It's like a full season of Game of Thrones, but with more chainswords and fewer weddings, though just as much betrayal. And honestly, it's kind of iconic. But here's the thing, you don't have to know everything to enjoy it. You don't have to read all 60 books on the Horus Heresy. You don't have to memorise all of the 18 Primarchs and their star signs, or understand why Adeptus Mechanicus thinks a toaster has a soul. You just need to kind of know the general overview. There's enough to decode what your boyfriend or your partner or your roommate or your brother or your random co-worker or that guy down the road is actually doing when he says, I'm off to play a game, and spoiler, he's not playing with his balls. It's oh my God, I'm not funny, am I? It's intergalactic chess with tiny goth soldiers and a lot of caffeine and creed. So next time he starts talking about how the Emperor sacrificed 10,000 psychers today, or why his wah was 3 inches short of glory, not on your date night, hopefully, you'll know, oh my God, you'll know he's not summoning demons. Well, he might be, but he's just deeply invested in his tiny painted space army. And if you really want to impress him, just casually drop in a line, like when you get back from work, hey, is that a new Forge World unit that you've got there? And he'll be like, what? Or wait, are you running a deep strike strategy or just manifesting chaos? Oh, sorry, babe. That looks like heresy to me. Boom, you're in. So who knows? Maybe you'll paint a mini or two. Maybe you'll do that painting date night, because maybe you'll start picking up factions based on the aesthetic. Like, hello, Dark Eldar, but make it girly pop. Maybe you'll just enjoy the drama, like it's a space opera version of Love Island, but with more plasma guns. Maybe you'll go and watch my Horus Heresy video. We can be friends. Either way, you're officially Warhammer aware. So go forth, and may the Emperor's light guide you. Anyway, if you've made it this far, I'm going to implore you only one time to please do all those things you need to do. Support my tiny channel, and I hope to see you in the next video.